Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And oh boy, there was a lot to talk about from yesterday with regards to the next World of Warcraft expansion, Dragonflight, with their original announcement and numerous articles and interviews that occurred all throughout the internet that I had to sift for this vital information to bring to you in my top 5 exciting features list. And if you want to stay up to date with everything World of Warcraft and ahead of the competition with regards to patch notes and news announcements and changes to the game so that you know what's going on at all times, make sure you hit the subscribe button because I do my best to bring this information in real time. But boy, did I have to break down a lot that you may have just missed because you only watched the original announcement that occurred with an interview with Ian or occurred with an article with Halinka or something of the like. So that information will be found here. I'll be discussing it, the pros and the cons of those features moving into the next era of World of Warcraft. So coming in at the number 5 position is the return of Warlords of Draenor PvP gearing. And if you're unfamiliar with this type of PvP gearing was 2 tiers. You had honor gear and conquest gear. You would grind honor and get a set of blue gear. This would be a set item level in PvP that was scaled up, all the same. And you would then do rated PvP to get conquest gear or epic gear, which was all the same. And it was just 2 tiers of PvP gear, a very simple and linear path to follow. And this gearing system had been developed and slowly improved and iterated on over multiple expansions, which is why I think a lot of players are the most fond of it. After this, we moved into Legion, where we completely went over into templates with completely uncustomizable PvP in terms of your stat allocation. Then we just threw that out the window and went to like everything goes with Battle for Azeroth. Then we went more to it like an in-between mix of that with the Shadowlands. And it's always been this massive overhaul that's kind of just, you've got to kind of readjust to. So I think that this will be something very nice to return to for Dragonflight. It'll create more accessibility for PvP in terms of equalizing item level, put in a little bit of work, you got that set of gear, and then you can just jump in and start PvPing with your buddies. The upgrading for that gear will still exist, but it will only affect everything outside of those instanced PvP. So war mode, world PvP, raids, and dungeons. So if you wish to upgrade that gear, work on getting higher rating to then compete in the rest of the game with that gear, you will be able to, which means some items will likely remain desirable for PvEers, something like badge trinkets, for example. So you're still going to have the option to upgrade it, but it's not mandatory. So if you only want to just focus on PvPing with your buddies for a couple of days, you're going to be able to do that. If you want to progress your character's power and then take that into the rest of the game, you're also going to be able to do that. So I am very fond of this change moving into Dragonflight. Coming into the number 4 position is ranked solo queue. Solo queue has been a big point of discussion here halfway through Shadowlands. Finding teammates can be very difficult. There are sometimes days where I will go with being unable to find a team and I really just want to smash out some 3v3 at the moment. And I often use the solo shuffle as a way to do that. So now adding ranking to that, and more importantly, adding MMR to that so that players will kind of be sifted into their own brackets. So you're not getting that match where someone is underdeveloped and their the character's gear is really low and they're just getting targeted down and stomped. I'm sure we've experienced that for those that have done solo shuffle. So hopefully that's going to be occurring a lot less. And with the incentivizations with a ladder and rewards, that's likely going to bring more people into it to then have more participation, because getting healers to sign up can be a bit of a problem for it at the moment. So trying to find a way to incentivize that is something on their radar. I am a bit worried about how it's going to contest with team play, because having to find people to play with and find friends is difficult, but it also comes with great benefits. Some of my most fond memories from the game have been my 3 versus 3 arena teams pushing for gladiator titles. And I would be honestly a bit sad to see that go away if people were completely de-incentivized from finding that, because you can get a gladiator title from solo queue. So I feel like this bracket in my mind should exist as a place to hone your skills, try 3v3 in a completely different way where you're forced to play different compositions, see if you can push your limits on your ability to play that spec with any different combination. And it should have its own rewards, a different mount, a different title, that is separate from that of the team play ladder, so that there's still a unique reason to seek out friends and start pushing as a team, because I think there is value. Although there is difficulty in doing it, there is also value in doing it that would be missed out on if it were to just have the same rewards, was one of my main concerns. But definitely something to get excited about for Dragonflight. Moving into the number 3 position is the new class, and this one was obviously a really big one. The new Evoker class is going to have 2 specializations, a ranged DPS DPS as well as a healer. Finally, a ranged DPS. Every single one has been a melee DPS, and I'm really tired of all the zug that's going on in PvP. So thankfully, this one is going to be a ranged DPS. It comes with a completely unique charge up mechanic, which is when you hold down the keybind for a spell, it's going to charge up over time and then deal more devastation or more healing or whatever they decide to do with it, because we didn't really get a lot of specifics as far as their spells, which should hopefully allow it to feel unique, because right now bringing a new class in and not having it feel like a clone of an already existing class is going to be a bit of a difficult task to overcome, and one that I'm really keeping my eyes on is how are they going to make the evoker not feel like a druid or not feel like a priest, because a lot of the descriptions in the video using bronze Dragonflight to speed up their heal over time effects or rewind time for cooldowns and such sounded very similar to already existing spells. So I'm curious to see how they make the evoker feel completely unique. Some small details is that I'm hoping there's a glyph to be able to look like this humanoid form so you can retain your transmogs, and if you don't want to have the full experience of Dudley the Dragon, you'll be able to have that as an option. I do hope that there's a glyph for that. And also potential problems in PvP with the charge up mechanic, right? We all know how things get when you're stacking damage modifiers and cooldowns and you hit for this massive burst of damage. Holding down the keybind and charging up and one-shotting somebody could be on the list for that. So I've definitely got my eyes on that with regards to PvP. But regardless, a new class is always very exciting for me. I love new spells. I love new strategies and ways to put different puzzle pieces together, all the new compositions and group building ideas. I'm very excited for it nonetheless. And coming into the number 2 position is no more borrowed power. So we've seen multiple systems of artifact power, Azerite power. You have to do these X lists of activity to maintain your character's power week after week to not fall behind and be able to do the content with your friends like dungeons and raids and PvP. And it's always been really sad and frustrating at the end of the expansion once you've leveled up all that borrowed power and grown attached to those new abilities, and bye-bye, they're gone after that point. And it's kind of always very unsettling point in the expansion. So that isn't going to be the case anymore with Dragonflight. There is going to be Renown, as they've announced, and I had to find in a separate article or interview where you're picking a dragon aspect, but apparently it's going to be you're leveling all of them together, and it's mostly cosmetic, likely mostly aimed towards the dragon isles themselves. So leveling up how your dragon flies around the map and stuff like this, and not so much to do with your power and your progression in your raid team, your dungeon or your PvP group. So hopefully it's going to be just you get to go out in the world, explore it, and level up and experience that. But if you don't want to and you just want to stay in your own aspect of the game with your buddies, because maybe you don't have a lot of time to spend that 3 hours to go into the Dragon Isles every week to maintain that, you won't have to worry about that, which is something that I was really keeping my eyes on. It needed to be discussed, and I'm happy to see it shifting into that cosmetic field or thematic field for the expansion rather than power. I'm very excited about it being like that, so I can explore it as I wish to and still be able to maintain competitive integrity in the rest of the game. Now moving into the next position, of course, the number 1 position is ducks. Ducks are the number 1 thing coming into the next expansion. I gotta be honest, I didn't even know that the duck thing was a thing, but apparently it was a really big deal after I realized the fact that ducks are coming in. We had to include it here in the top 5 list as well after I found out that vital information. Yeah, there's ducks. But no, jokes aside, coming in at the number 1 position for me, similar to the borrowed power, is the return of these kind of more original talent trees rather than the Mists of Pandaria kind of boxes that you're slotting through. It's more like a very long egated puzzle to be able to go through, and you're going to have class talent trees as well as spec specific talent trees of different point allocations to work your way down and to construct a completely unique build. Now in the past with these talent trees, my criticism has been rigidity. So you just locked into one and you either have to spend an exorbitant amount of gold to be able to change it or be time gated and wait an X amount of days to be able to make a change to it. And all those things were a very big headache. So when I saw this, those were my initial thoughts. I was thinking, oh no, I don't actually want this, because this means like Azerite gear, I'm gonna have to spend 10 billion gold to change this one thing one time to play PvP instead of raid. Oh, I can't do this again. But it looks like there are going to be loadouts. So you're going to be able to save different versions of these and change them whenever you want. I'm really hoping they don't, at the end of the day, put some sort of gold sink into this so that I can have a whole bunch of nuance. I can try different combinations of these. So I might have a warlock loadout as a druid against a warlock. I want to try these different talents together. I'd rather have it looks like an interrupt, right? Like there's a skull bash here. There's so much to talk about on this talent tree alone, that is absolutely crazy, right? One of my concerns with these talent trees is classes that have access to healer specs and tank specs as well as DPS, because this has been a problem in PvP where those specs can take guardian druid talents, right, and then just become invincible in PvP. So I do hope that the consistency of making changes to classes is retained moving into Dragonflight, as we have seen. I don't really have any reason to believe that it won't, with the consistency that has been going on, but that's something of concern, is what happens when players are only taking the tank options or the healing options available to their class or their specialization. And another thing is that we didn't really get a lot of specifics with regards to this list and talents and what's going to be available, because a lot of this looks like baseline abilities that you'd have on your spec, like Solar Beam, for example, for Boomkin coming into the talent tree. So you're going to lose that and you have to put it into a talent later on. What's going on here? How much of this is going to be new? How much of this is just things that were baseline coming into the talent tree? I'm kind of covering it up with my camera here, but Convoke the Spirits is also here. So does this mean that some Shadowlands abilities are also going to be retained moving into this talent tree list? There's a lot of unanswered questions that I will get to as soon as it's available. So once again, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all of those changes. But this was the number one for me, was a focus away from borrowed power, a focus on core class design, getting them all up to speed on things that we're going to get to keep, taking from the past like the most exciting things about classes and specializations and then iterating on them, and this type of deal, while also allowing customization and freely switching between all those options, was one of the things that I'm most excited for. It also seems like honor talents will remain, but we shouldn't expect to see new ones at the release of the expansion. In an interview that I saw with Halinka, they're saving new honor talents for patches like 10.1. The 0.1 patches is where they're going to be looking to add new honor talents. So right now the main focus is going to be these main talent trees. As we move through the expansion, then new honor talents will likely come into the mix as well. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I do hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.